Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk Safety. I'm your host, Sutherland from Protekta Safety Gear. Throughout this series, we'll be interviewing industry experts to provide our audience with valuable insights on various categories of PPE. Topics will range from selection and standards to maintenance and care. This should ultimately assist you in selecting fit-for-purpose safety solutions for your site. From these discussions, we will create resources such as Toolbox Talk downloads and blogs, all of which will be available on our website, www.protekta.co.za, for download. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Safety. We're now in section 2 of our EN166 standard discussion with TK from uvex, and now we're going to dive a bit deeper into how do we make this standard practical? How do we make sure that when we are either procuring or speccing or actually even using an EN166 spectacle, how do we make sure that we're selecting and using it correctly? So just a quick recap from the section 1 where TK went through the actual standard and how it's met. There's a few components that sat in there. I mean, the one was the impact and the varying impact that a spectacle or the lens can withstand, as well as the frame can withstand. The second one was the optical clarity. We touched on that a little bit. The third one was whether or not it has the appropriate marking. And the fourth one was the shades and what that looked like.
Yes.
So I think for this one, let's start right at the beginning when people are selecting the appropriate eye protection.
Yes.
TK, what would be the position somebody is in to say, you know what, I need an EN166 spectacle?
Okay. So it's a very good question because the industry is made up of so many different types of hazards. We get exposed to different hazards all over the place, and sometimes it's a chemical hazard, sometimes it's a mechanical hazard. So when choosing the appropriate spectacle, you need to know or you need to ascertain what hazard are you exposed to. Okay, so let's talk about impact resistance for instance. With impact resistance, are you exposed to high heavy dust where you're working? Are there a lot of flying objects? Flying objects, we're talking about mining industry, for example, where you have a guy who's doing rock drilling, where the rocks from the drilling are coming in, or there's a potential of those rocks coming into a person's face and actually injuring their eyes. So if you look at the impact resistance of an entry level spectacle, it says the impact resistance that it needs to adhere to is the F rating. What does that mean? F rating is impact resistance at 45 meters per second on impact. Okay. So anything that is flying at 45 meters per second on impact onto the lens must not break. If you break down 45 meters per second into kilometers per hour, we're looking at around about 162 kilometers per hour.
Sure.
Which is very, very high speed. And that's on a spectacle. Okay. If you're looking at impact resistance on a goggle, for instance, it's at 120 meters per second. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at 440 kilometers per hour. Again, we need to know what's the difference between a goggle and a spectacle. A goggle is any eye protection that has got a strap on the spectacle itself, and the strap is attached to the lens or attached to the frame of the lens. Okay, a spectacle is anything that has got a frame. So again, we need to know what are we exposed to. So all the safety spectacles will have the EN166 standard, and the impact resistance will differ. Okay, and when we talk about optical clarity, it means that the spectacle that I'm wearing, am I seeing on the other side what is actually on the other side? So are there any distortions? So when we're talking about distortions, is that are you seeing double visions? If you're working in a warehouse where you have to consistently go up the stairs or consistently watch small machinery or operate small machinery, is the button exactly where it should be. You're not pressing around to feel for where the button is, because there's a lot of distortion. So an optical correct class 1 spectacle, it's basically like looking through a glass or looking through your windscreen window. Your windscreen window will be optical correct class 1. There's no distortions, and because there's no distortions, you won't experience any dizziness or any headaches. Because once the spectacle does not have optical class 1, you experience a lot of distortions, you'll experience a lot of headaches, a lot of dizziness. That's why if you are not used to the spectacle, the first 5 seconds or the first 5 minutes of you wearing the spectacle, you'll tell the difference immediately. So there are manufacturers that manufacture their products at optical class 1. So the minute you wear the spectacle, you won't feel any difference, and you won't feel any dizziness or any headaches from the spectacle itself.
Okay. If we can just quickly crack into that class 1, what causes that distortion? What do they do better from a class 1 to a class 3, if we use that as an example?
So remember, because the lens is made out of plastic, and this plastic is basically heated and stretched. For an example, if you take a normal plastic bag from your supermarket, if you look through it, if it's a clear plastic bag, if you look through it, you'll be able to see properly on the other side. The minute you start stretching it, you'll see that there is a little bit of distortion, and what is on the other side is not exactly what is on the other side. So that's what creates distortions. And also the quality of polycarbonate that you're using. A lot of manufacturers will use recycled polycarbonate. So that is polycarbonate that is not in its natural form. It's been recycled through different processes. And your best polycarbonate that you can get that's going to give you optical class 1 clarity is virgin polycarbonate that is just coming out from manufacturing that's coming out from the manufacturer into the manufacturing process of the spectacles.
Okay, great. So you've explained a little bit about who or what the impact might look like or the clarity, but how does that affect a construction worker? Because, 160 odd kilometers, something shooting at that rate, it's quite fast. When are they selecting this EN166 spectacle?
So for construction, for instance, if a guy is doing grinding, angle grinder, okay? If a guy is doing grinding, the best option that he can use is a goggle, because it gives him a much higher impact resistance. It's giving him impact resistance at 460 kilometers per hour. So if you look at a grinding disc, the spinning speed of a grinding disc is basically about between 400 and 500 kilometers per hour. Should anything happen to that grinding disc while the construction worker is grinding, and I don't know, by accident, because that's what we're protecting against. We're protecting against something that happens accidentally. That grinding disc is probably moving at about 420, 430 kilometers per hour. And it's coming into the eye. It needs to hit an eye protector that was going to withstand that kind of speed. If you're looking at a spectacle, a guy that's like we said now, a guy that's doing rock drilling, or a guy that's just working in a cement manufacturing plant where there's a lot of small dust, small particles of objects that are in the air, they don't need to wear a goggle. Okay, they might need to wear a spectacle that has got an insert on the inside to stop the dust from coming in, but the impact resistance will be in that range of 45 meters per second.
And because my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that all eye protection should have that EN166 as a minimum?
Yes. So as a minimum, the EN166 standard states that your protection, in terms of impact, it needs to be a minimum of 45 meters per second. Again, there's manufacturers that go far and beyond the standard, and that's what separates the good eye protectors to the average eye protectors. There's standards that manufacturers use to go far and beyond the standard. The highest I've seen on impact resistance on a spectacle is 75 meters per second.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's almost double the requirement of the EN166 standard. But of course, I mean, the higher your impact resistance, or the more you go far and beyond the standard, I mean, that's where the difference in quality comes in. And you find that the higher quality spectacles or the higher quality eye protectors, they last 3 times, 4 times longer than the ones that just meet the standard.
And to your point earlier, if optical class isn't that of a class 1, for instance, it's also going to have additional effects, which would be the suffering of the employee,
Yeah.
and the lower production output almost.
Exactly. And that's what we find in the industry, that a lot of people are they complain too much of the distortion, that instead of working a full 8-hour shift, you find that this guy's working 6 hours or 5 hours, because he's taking so many breaks in between the shift for his eyes to recover, or for her eyes to recover from the distortion and from the dizziness and the headaches. So the higher your class, your polycarbonate quality, the higher your optical class, the more productive the employees will be in the long run.
Fantastic. Do you have real world experience or examples where an eye protection of the EN166 in this example has protected somebody and served its purpose, where something which was probably of an inferior rating or not even a rating at all would have left that person potentially blind or injured?
Whew. Yeah, no, there's I've seen so many different types of injuries in my time at uvex. So one example is on a construction site, again, where a guy is working with a nail gun. And again, it starts with the user, and it starts with the person's own safety. If you adhere to the safety processes of handling such tools and such machinery, we can minimize a lot more injuries that are in the industry. But anyway, a guy's using a nail gun. This nail gun is obviously shooting at 40 meters per second, and by accident he points the nail gun to himself without knowing that his finger's on the trigger, and he shoots straight into the spectacle. Okay, but because this is a high quality spectacle and the impact resistance on the spectacle is not meeting 45 meters per second, but it's exceeding the standard. I mean, it's at about 75 meters per second, and it stopped that nail from actually penetrating through onto the guy's eyes. Had it been any other spectacle, or had it been a spectacle that does not conform to the EN standard, the guy would have lost his eye.
That's phenomenal.
And that is again a very expensive exercise to the employer. And you've got now a person that's without an eye. You have to compensate for this person. This person now is going home not in the way that he came to work.
Correct.
Yeah. So I'm very passionate about eye protection and about safety in general, because we are in an industry where we are saying that, listen, from your house to work, from work to your house, we need to keep you protected at all costs. Whether it's your hands, whether it's your eyes, whether it's your ears, whether it's your lungs, we need to keep you protected as much as possible. So we don't manufacture products that just make it. We go far and beyond that to make sure that we are indeed protecting our customers and our people.
It's difficult. It's always a balance of cost and willingness to spend. I mean, you know it, I think, firsthand that PPE is generally a grudge purchase.
Yes.
The reality, though, is saving one eye
Yes.
probably nullifies all the additional costs that PPE would have cost in the long run.
Yes.
But generally, we have to have an incident before people take that on board, which makes it a bit tricky as well, right?
Yeah, and makes it a little bit sad as well that before we react, or before we change our ways, it's always a reaction process.
Yep.
It's not, being proactive. You're always reacting to an injury that happened on site. You're always reacting to a cost that you have to incur now because of this injury. And that's why there's a saying that the best PPE is the PPE that's worn. So whether it's comfortable, whether it's not, whether it's very uncomfortable, if you're not wearing it, it's not going to protect you.
100% right.
Yeah. And talking about PPE that protects you and different qualities of eye protection, if a worker is wearing a spectacle that is not optical class 1, or a spectacle that is giving him distortions and dizziness, yes, he'll go in the morning to pull the spectacle out of the stock. They give him the spectacle, he wears it for 5-10 minutes. It's giving him distortions. What do you think that he does with this eye protector?
Takes it off.
He takes it off, puts it on his head,
Yep.
but he carries on working. As soon as he sees the safety officer coming in, he puts it back on, and then he carries on. And 5 minutes later, he puts it there because it is very uncomfortable for him, and he doesn't want to stop working because it's his livelihood.
Yeah.
But he is, in essence, putting himself in exposure of a very, very dangerous hazard.
That's really true.
Yeah.
So comfort and, as you've mentioned, using the PPE is critical for it to work properly. The problem is, I mean, when it comes to a cost point, that's probably going to be a product that hits the bare minimum, just to tick that box and say, look, we EN166. What are the additional features and the additional considerations one should take when selecting an appropriate eye protection, EN166 in this case, and ensuring that it will be used and it will serve the purpose without putting anybody at risk during their work shift?
Yes. Great question. So when it comes to EN166, so we've covered the bare minimum request. Okay, so there's additional requirements that you can put or that you can use for your spectacles to be much better performing. Okay, so if you look at your environment, what kind of environment are you working in? Is it a dusty environment? If it's a dusty environment, obviously you would want your spectacle to be scratch resistant from the dust that's ending up on the lens. Okay, so with anti scratch resistance, you can add a anti scratch resistant coating. It's called a hard coat on the lens itself, so that it's more resistant to scratches. Why do you want your spectacle to be more resistant to scratches? It's because you want your vision to be clear at all time. Once your spectacles start to get scratches, your vision becomes impaired. Okay?
Sure.
The other addition that you can add onto the spectacle is to have a anti-mist or anti-fog coating on the spectacles. Most of the times when the guys are wearing spectacles or they're working in a mining environment, a dusty environment, they're wearing a dust mask.
Yeah.
So now what happens when you're wearing a dust mask? When you're exhaling, when you're breathing in and out, when you exhale moisture. That moisture goes up onto the spectacles and it fogs up the spectacle, or it messes up the spectacle. 9 out of 10 times when that happens, the end user will take off one protecting equipment. He's either going to take off the respirator or he's going to take off the spectacles.
Yeah.
So if your spectacles have got a very, very good anti-fog coating on the inside or on the outside, he will be protected regardless. Okay. With the anti-fogging test, what happens is according to the EN166, they will test the anti-fogging property with a lens. They'll put a lens over a cup of moisture or a cup of steam or water that is being boiled at 50 degrees Celsius. Put the lens over that water, and the lens is not supposed to fog for 8 seconds or less. Okay. So anything below 8 seconds, it fails the anti-fog test. Anything above the 8 seconds, it passes the fogging test. Again, with the fogging, remember that we're talking about a coating. It's something that we put additional onto the lens.
Yeah.
Okay. The coatings do wash off on some manufacturers' coatings. Some other manufacturers will say that their lens are permanently coated, which means permanent coating means that you can't wash it off.
Okay.
No matter how many times you wash your spectacle, it's not gonna wash off. Okay. The only way that you can get that permanent coating is how you are coating the spectacle itself. There's two types of coatings. There's a flow coating. So with a flow coating, what happens is you can get two coatings on both sides of two different coatings on the lens. On the outside, you can get an anti-fog coating because it's a spray coating that goes outside of the lens, and another different coating that goes on the inside of the lens. So on the outside of the lens, you can get an anti-scratch coating because that's where your scratching is going to happen.
Yeah.
Again, if you look at a guy that's working in a dusty environment, once his spectacles get a little bit of dust on the outside, what does he do?
Or takes it off and wipes it
He takes it off, he wipes it, but how does he wipe it?
with his contour.
With his contour suit.
Yep.
So his contour suit already has got abrasive particles on it, the sand particles. So he's scratching the eye protector in essence. So with the anti-scratch coating on the outside of the lens, it will make that lens last a lot longer. So yes, with the flow coating, you get an anti-scratch coating on the outside and an anti-fog coating on the inside. The less cost-effective way of coating, depending on the manufacturer. Are they doing bulk manufacturing? Are they doing high cost manufacturing? You can get also a dip coating. Now with a dip coating, you've got a bucket of solution of anti-fog or anti-scratch solution. You take the lens and you dip it into this solution, and you take it out and you let it dry. So what happens there is that you've got one coating on both sides of the lens. So it's either an anti-scratch coating on both sides or it's an anti-fog coating on both sides. The disadvantage sometimes of that dip coating is that the curing process of that dip coating is not always permanent. So you get fresh out of the package, you get a spectacle that says it's anti-fog. You test it once and yes, it is anti-fog, but the minute you start washing it twice or three times, that anti-fog coating washes off. And before a week goes by, you need to change your spectacle because it's not as permanent as on the flow coating process.
So when we talk about this anti-fog, anti-scratch, clear, you can either have anti-fog on one side, anti-scratch on another, or you could have both anti-fog on outside and inside.
Correct.
I've had this discussion, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because again, we want to create value for the listeners. Is it possible to have anti-scratch and fog on one side of the lens?
No.
So there's no way that can be done, and if anybody's told that they can, they probably
yeah, because you have to use one coat or one coating on either side of the lens.
Okay.
You can't have an anti-scratch and an anti-fog coating on one side of the lens. Yep. One needs to offset the other.
Not one or the other.
Yeah, it's either one or the other.
Fantastic.
So your best case scenario or your unicorn eye protection is ideally one on both sides.
Yeah.
Anti-fog on the inside, anti-scratch on the outside. that's going to be your spectacle that's going to protect you, or that's going to protect you against most of the hazards that are in the industry.
Yeah. And you mentioned, so I don't think it's just the dip, but there is obviously levels of what the protection is applied to the lens.
Yes.
And that, I mean, it's all good and well that as we take a product out, it works really well. But the reality is, in any industry, I mean, you're not working for an hour. You're probably going to use this product for the next 3 months.
Yes.
And I think we need to also highlight that that's a critical decision because it might slightly increase the cost, but the long term, the cost can be much higher if the product doesn't work as intended. What are those knock-on effects? How might it become more expensive for somebody that buys a cheaper spectacle today that the anti-fog, for instance, rubs off in a week?
There's a saying in Afrikaans, it says goedkoop is duurkoop.
Yeah.
An example, I mean, if you are a marathon runner, you can go into a shop and buy yourself a decent pair of shoes that's costing 3 times more than the other pair of shoes that you saw at another shop. The reality is that your running shoe that you've chosen at a much higher cost is probably going to last you 4 times more than what the other shoe would have cost you. So it's also about the manufacturing processes and the manufacturing quality of the eyewear. Okay, what are you getting in this? That's the question that you should be asking yourself. What are you not getting in this cheaper spectacle that you're getting in the more expensive spectacle? It could be longevity in terms of a cost against usage. So a spectacle I've seen a spectacle lasting 3-4 months in a very, very harsh environment.
Yeah.
And the guys are happy to use that spectacle in that harsh environment because in the long run, it's ending them a lot. It's saving them a lot more money than having to replace a spectacle every 3 days.
And again, the knock-on might be that it doesn't get replaced, but you lose
Yes.
production, right?
The knock-on is that it might not get replaced, but you're losing productivity. You are exposing the guys into to a very, very serious injury on site. The other one thing that we didn't speak about is UV protection. So UV protection is just protection from ultraviolet sunlight. Okay. So according to the 166 standard, your spectacle also must give you UV protection. Okay. So when we come to UV protection, I think we'll cover that in the next session. That's a different EN standard of UV protection that you require on safety spectacle.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We obviously we want to make sure that we get a lot out of these sessions and assist people in deciding or assist them in making a good decision on their product that they use. Tiego, thanks so much for breaking down the EN166. We really appreciate your time.
I really appreciate being here, and I'm glad that I could share a little bit of insight. To what the EN166 standard actually entails, and what should the users of these spectacles be looking for in a spectacle. Again, I mean, there's other things that as an end user or as the procurement officer you can ask for in terms of the spectacles. I mean, you can ask for test standards. Some people will just provide you with a data sheet, but a data sheet does not mean that the spectacle has been tested. It needs to the test the proof for testing needs to come with a certification from a third party tester, with a CE certificate or EN certificate that the spectacle has been tested from an outside player.
Fantastic. That's really good insight. I mean, we often see it from the CE point when it's critical PPE. But the reality is that CE third-party
Yes.
certification, it's ensuring that it's manufactured to the same standard every single time. And I think when it comes to safety, you definitely want to know that the product works
Yes,
as intended.
exactly. It's quite critical.
Cool. Thanks a lot, TK. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. As we've mentioned before, please do share any questions, any suggestions on how we can create more value. If there's points that we haven't included which you think would be vital, feel free to share it with us. We only want to keep getting better at ensuring people stay safe, and hopefully this helps in doing that. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and I hope this episode added value to you. If you are experiencing any safety challenges on your sites and require any additional information, please do leave us a message on LinkedIn via Protekta Safety Gears page, or alternatively follow the link below and share a message with us, because maybe it can create value or a valuable conversation for future episodes. Be sure to also follow us on LinkedIn. There will be some valuable information shared from today's discussion.